All right, let's jump into this draft. Um, I mean, clearly we're gonna take the memory dredger here for a lot of reasons. Number one, it is, I think on um uh top end, this card has the highest benefits. You're definitely gonna have a whole bunch of one or two casting cost units in draft. You're gonna have the whole bunch of two drops no matter what, so a lot of value there. You can draft around it if it's a first pick. Um, Also, it's a rare. You don't really get a chance to play with rares in drafts. I always try to draft a deck around the rares because they're more interesting. I mean, we've done plenty of decks with extracts and purifies and cannon bearers and whatnot. But how often do you get to play with the memory dredger, right? So we're gonna go ahead and take that. If that wasn't there, I think the next best cards is these three here plus the extract. So Blister Sting, Wasp, Cannon Bearer, Purify, and Extract are all perfectly fine picks. Although starting the game with a 6-drop common, you may not have to do that, even though the Cannon Bearer is one of the best red cards. But I think Blister Sting Wasp is probably the most versatile of the cards because this card can actually do damage in the air if you put a weapon onto it. So it's a pretty decent threat. 1 damage a turn is not nothing, but it can also block any unit in the game. So like your opponent can play a Cannon Bear on turn 6, you can block it with your 2 power 1/3. So I think this card is, I mean, it is dual faction. That is a strike against it, but I think if the memory dredger was not there, I probably take the Blister Sting Wasp over the Purify and Extract. Cannon Bear may be the third choice. So anyway, take the memory dredger and not waste too much time on it. Now keep in mind we're not locked into our first pick. We would really like to play this if we can, but we're not gonna force ourselves into black. And unfortunately, this card is not splashable as it takes double shadow. I think in this pack, I actually like the Direwood Prowler quite a bit. Memory Dredger and Direwood Prowler actually wants to be in the same kind of deck, basically some kind of a sacrifice themed deck. And so you really hope to pick up like the Sacrifice Wasp, Dark Wasp, I think it's called, Dark Wisp. I don't know the name of the card. 2 power 1/1. When it dies, you draw a card, or the gargoyle, the 0/2 gargoyles, stuff like that. Other than the Prowler, I think Snapping Brushstalker has a lot of upside if you draft Zenon's initiations, but it's a very risky card. I'm probably not interested in the Skeeter or the Fallen Oni here. I'm interested in the Argenport Stranger, the Cyclops, the Prowler, and the Roosting Owl. I think even if we didn't pick a Memory Dredger in the first pick, I still like the Direwood Prowler quite a bit. So we're gonna go ahead and pick that. Over, I think if that wasn't there, I might end up just picking the Argenport Stranger. Recently I had a draft where I neglected to take 2 drops early and ended up with a deck with like mono 4 drops. So I definitely don't want a repeat of that again. But let's take the Direwood Prowler here. Because like I said, I like the card anyway. So in this pack, very clearly the two best cards is Cannon Bear and Archive Curator. Both time and fire seems to be open though. Cannon Bear is a very good card. Thunderhoof Warrior is playable, but the 4/4 Dinosaur and the Archive Curator are like top picks in time. If I had an option and if I was in a sacrifice theme, I would say Stone Scar is better. But I don't like this 4-drop. It's pretty weak sauce. And I don't want to pick up 2 6-drops in my first 3 picks. So I think I'm actually going to go ahead and pick the Archive Curator here. I do understand that Zenon is by far the worst color combination. And if I'm going to be primarily Shadow splashing Time, I don't think that's a very good deck as well, because Time doesn't have a lot of great commons that add a lot to a lot of the sub themes that you can get in Shadow, like a sacrifice. I guess basically sacrifice is your sub theme in Shadow. But once again, I'm not locked in to Shadow. I could simply abandon this if I don't see any good Shadow cards. But out of this pack, if I was to first pick something, I actually would pick the Archive Creator over the Cannon Bear. And the reason for that is because you can actually double block the Cannon Bear with like 2 3/3s, and you would only lose one of the 3/3s. So this card is big and it's good, but in a board style situation, it's not going to win you the game on its own, but it is quite powerful. But what I find in draft is that very often, what loses you the game is flying units. Basically, chipping away for 2 damage a turn in the air will win you games. And Archive Curator is both good to do that to your opponent, but it's also good to stop your opponent from doing that, because a 1/4 flyer is going to block most of the flyers that your opponent has, and it can also silence another flyer. So effectively, it's one card that can stop 2 flyers. Or it can be a chipping, or it could be a flyer itself that you can fly in for chip damage if your opponent doesn't have flyers. I think for those reasons, I'm going to go ahead and pick up the Archive Creator here. So time seems to be not as open in this pack. The only card is Trail Runner, and it's not good. But what is actually much more noticeable though is that there's no fire cards. Like I said before many times, there is a minimum of 1 card per color in every pack. The fact that there's no fire card meant that someone took it. It could have been the rare, maybe one of the uncommons, but there's no fire. That's notable. And the time card that is in it is really bad, so that's also notable. So our Archive Creator may be a waste here. But between these cards, I think the most powerful card is probably either the Skywalk Instructor, the Tireless Stranger, and I really like the Ice Ball a lot. Especially if I end up being a black-blue deck and I have a whole bunch of really good infiltrate units, the Ice Ball is actually really powerful. I think if you want to play Ice Ball, you really should be in either black or in black or perhaps time, because then you can put this onto deadly units like Sand Vipers, which is also very good. Probably not going to take the Tireless Stranger here. I'm not interested in either of these green cards that much. The Longshot Marksman is okay, but I don't love it. It does work well with Memory Dredger though. If you can pump it and then it dies, you can still bring it back as a 4/3 and you can pump it again. So there is some innate synergies there that sounds kind of nice. But I'm actually going to go ahead and pick up this Ice Bowl, because I think Ice Bowl has a lot of good combos with Shadow, and it's looking like to me Shadow is open, so I kind of want to move towards that direction. Or I can take the safe pick in Longshot Marksman and not worry about it, but it further solidifies us into Shadow. But then again, if we pick the Ice Bowl, we're also solidifying us into Shadow because Ice Bowl really works with Shadow. Alternatively, the banner, but yeah, we're gonna go ahead and take the Ice Bowl here. Okay. This pack, 1 Shadow card is a very bad one. 1 blue card, also a bad one, and 3 fire cards. So fire might be back on the menu. What's important to note is that you can't use a single pack as a sign, because in the first 4 or 5 picks, maybe the last pack had no fire cards because it was the rare and or it was a legendary and someone took it for the value of the legendary and wasn't in red at all. You never know. So you do need a few packs to start to see the trend here. But seems like to me in every color there's blue, green, black, red, time. Yeah, in every color there's an equally mediocre card, right? None of these are exciting. I really don't like a Cabal Slasher. But I also don't like the Swift Stranger either. This Stranger is kind of double-bladed, double-edged sword. 4 power 3/3 on the ground is not very good, and giving your opponent's random strangers charge is often also not very good. I actually kind of like the Archaeologist here, but then man, going to Zenin is really something I don't like to do. But this, I think, actually is the better of the bunch. Pit Fighter is also playable though. A 6/3 unit is not that bad. Yeah, let's take the Pit Fighter. I think if I didn't have any cards here, like this is my first pack. If this was my first pack, I might actually just end up picking the Pit Fighter, to be honest with you. 6 power unit is quite good for the offense. In an empty board, it finishes the game really fast. Otherwise, in a clock board, this blocks really well. 6 power can pretty much block any unit and trade fairly well there. That also means we're all over the place, but that's fine. We'll be all over the place. I really just didn't like the Cabal Slasher. I really hate that card. Zen and Augury would have been fine if we had a Life Force deck, but of course, Life Force decks are bad, so we don't want to do that. This is not a very good 2-drop. We're gonna end up taking this 4-drop in red here. We might end up being in Stone Scar. Yeah, red is open. Oh, time is open too because Awakened Sentinel is actually really good. But I think we're gonna go ahead and take up this Blink Wolf because we need 2-drops. Yep, we're gonna take up the Skycrack Stranger over the second Audacious Bandit because we need 2-drops. And this Skycrack Stranger might actually help us splash the Ice Bowl, which could be pretty good if I need to trigger some Infiltrate and Black later. Oh, Minotaur Oathkeeper being this late is quite anomaly. We didn't see very many high quality green cards. I don't think green is open. I think this is just, for some strange reason, the person who's drafting green had another green card that's even better, and it took that one over the Minotaur Oathkeeper. I think that's what happened. So we're gonna go ahead and take this Umbran Thirster. Reforge is good, but you do need a good weapon to go with it. I guess this is a weapon, but there's also the chance that you don't ever get a great weapon, and in which case this is like a speculative pick, and you do need quite a few good weapons for it to be worth playing this card because it's highly conditional. It does nothing on its own. You have to draw the other weapon first, and then you have to lose it, and then this card becomes good. That's too many conditions, I think. I want to go ahead and take this 5-drop here, even though it's not a very good one. Yeah, we'll take this 3-drop. Once again, not a good one. 2-drop, not a good one. So I really don't like the place we're at now. I really don't like the place we're at now. I think our deck is super mediocre, and our curve is looking like a flat line across 2 to 5. That's not really where you want to be. But this is a great rare, especially because we drafted an Ice Bowl. This is exactly the kind of card you want to use with Ice Bowl. Turn 3, Beast Collar, turn 4, Ice Bowl basically ends games. So we're going to take this Beast Collar over not too much else. Yeah, definitely taking the Beast Collar here. We have a premium removal spell in Suffocate, but the Ravenous Thorn Beast is pretty good for a sacrifice theme deck. But we don't have any enablers yet. We have a lot of sacrifice payoff cards, but we have no enablers. So we don't want to draft too many of these payoffs yet. I think the option here is between Suffocate and Rebel Sharpshooter, which is also very good. But we always pretty much take cheap, efficient removal over units, unless the unit's a certified bomb, and this is not really a bomb. You need something else to go with it before it's good, and it still has just 3 toughness, so it can be burned out pretty easily with Lightning Strike and Torch and Purify. But Suffocate is a removal spell, and it's fantastic. Ronin is only really good if you have an ultra aggressive deck, and it's actually really difficult to make ultra aggressive decks work because ultra aggressive decks, once you get to 3 or 4 or 5 power, once your opponent starts putting in some 3/5s and 4/5s and 0/7s, your ultra aggressive deck needs to have some ways to get around those units, and there's not that many great combat tricks that allows you to get through the last few points of damage once your opponent starts to stabilize. I find a lot of aggressive decks that I try to draft starts to be very aggressive. You do a lot of damage early, you get them down to like 10 life, 8 life, 7 life, and then they stabilize with 5/5s, like 5/6s, 3/5s, and all of a sudden you can no longer attack. And there's very few spells in the game that allows you to win a game once you get into a board stall when your units are really small and really weak, and you have a lot of them in play, and you have no cards left in your hand. So for that reason, I don't like drafting ultra aggressive decks because they're really hard to come together. So let's take the Suffocate here. Ooh, Stone Scar Maul is really good, but so is Dark Return. Dark Return on some of these great units, a Prowler or Memory Charger, or like a Direwood Beast Collar with Dark Return is kind of absurd. But I think we'll take the Stone Scar Maul here. This card's too powerful. It's a very strong removal spell, and if your opponent is got a whole bunch of 1/1s in play, you can kill like 2 1/1s and then overwhelm through for like 10 points of damage. This card is aggressive. It's a good removal spell. It's a very good top end. On sheer raw power, it's better than Dark Return, so we're gonna go ahead and take that. Although Dark Return does have some good combo implications. Yeah, we take Death Strike here. This is an unconditional premium fast removal spell. Yeah, if you get a bunch of these in a draft deck, your chances are you're gonna win the game. Um, Hands down the best card, no comparison here. Definitely not gonna play with a Blood Beetle, so. Ooh, Dark Wisp, there you go, perfect. This is exactly the kind of card that you want with your sacrifice. So this is the kind of outlet that we're looking for in this deck. This is not an aggressive deck. See, your Sparkbot and your Audacious Bandit is probably not gonna make the cut. Even Pit Fighter may not make the cut. This is a mid-range value sub-theme sacrifice deck with a lot of gimmicky combos with Infiltrate. I think this deck is going to be really fun. I don't know how good it's going to be, but I think this deck is going to be really fun. Let's take the Dark Wasp here. Ooh, Amethyst Acolyte. This card's perfect. Gorgon Switchblade is also really good, but I think we're too deep in red now to go into blue. But Amethyst Acolyte is perfect. This card's great. It immediately impacts the board, gets rid of a small unit, or just simply make one of the big units smaller. It's a 2-1 body. This card's great. Yep, Dark Return, exactly the kind of card we want. We don't really want the Outrider, but we also don't want any of these other cards. We're not going to play another 6-drop. The Hell Rifle is not good enough as a 6-drop. Although it does trigger Infiltrate. Like if you have a really late Infiltrate card, this helps you trigger it. But I think we can pick up some more Ice Bowls in the next pack. Let's just be a little bit more optimistic. Having 3 6-drops already is not that great, and this is the weakest of the 6-drops. So let's just take this Centaur Outrider, I guess. Pilfer is fine, but oh man, can I actually get away with, like, if we focus really hard on fixing, can we get away with playing Gorgon Swiftblade? Because Gorgon Swiftblade is actually a very good 2-drop. A lot better than Pilfer, but it's just, the question is, if you're splashing a card, how likely are you going to be able to play your splash card, like, on turn 2? Actually, you know what? This is a shitty... oh, sorry about the swearing. This is a bad red card. This is not very good. This is not very good. This is not very good. You know, we could still be black-blue. Let's just take that over the Infiltrate. Yep, this is an okay 6-drop. We'll play it. Yep, Combust is very good. Yeah, let's keep our options open. Maybe we're not black-red. None of these red cards are great. We don't need any of these red cards. Huh. Alright, well, let's just keep our options open a little bit here. None of the black cards are good. We're not going to play a 7-drop removal, especially because we already have great removal spell, like Death Strike. And also the Stone Scar Maul. Both of these strangers don't help with red or blue, which is unfortunate. I think the only card with choice we have here... we could try and splash the Bloodletter here, actually. But other than that, I mean, we just take a random 2-drop stranger that's not even on color. That seems really weak sauce. I'm gonna speculatively take this Bloodletter and see what can happen. I mean, I know we have like all 5 colors now. Well, no, we have 4 colors right now. We have main Shadow. We can potentially... we don't have a second main color. We can either be Fire secondary or Primal secondary, and we can splash the other, right? So, oh man, that is a powerful card. I really wish I had that card. Yeah, see, if we were... the problem with being at fire is we have so many 6-drops. Having like all 6-drops in a deck isn't the best way to win a game. You do need a bit of a curve. Dragon Breath is not great in this deck. I have nothing with deadly. I don't have a lot of things with high power. So even if I was choosing between Primal versus Fire as my secondary color, both of these cards are just mediocre. Is there any reason for taking the Cabal Bludgeoner here? Because we do have an Ice Bowl. We can try and pick up a couple more weapons later. But this card is it's also pretty underwhelming. I think this card is bad enough that I would rather take one of these 2 cards. I guess the question is really, are we Fire secondary or are we Primal secondary? Going with Fire certainly gave us a lot more playable cards, but none of them are great. But if we don't play Fire, the Blink Wolf is gone, the Stones, the Maul is gone. With 25 kind of playable cards here, which is not bad. We can Splash Time. If we Splash Time, we can still play... Nope, if we Splash Time, we can't play any of these cards. We'll splash the Combust, but we don't splash anything else. But playing time means we are massively overloaded on 6-drops, and that's not a good place to be. Dragon Breath works really well with Gorgon Swiftblade if I'm able to infiltrate it. But other than that, none of the other units work that well with Dragon Breath. I mean, these big units, sure, but nothing early game. So I'm not super enticed to pick the Dragon Breath here. So like, let's rule out Dragon Breath because it's not looking great in our deck. Let's just take a look at between these two cards. The Bludgeoner or the Cannon Bear. Cannon Bear is very good if we can cast it. Because we saw really late Gorgon Swiftblades last pack, I have some confidence that on the 4th pack, I'm going to be able to get more Feln cards. And that's what I really like. And we didn't see any good Stone Scar. There's actually not that many good Stone Scar cards in the common slot. So I think I would way rather be Feln than Stone Scar. So I think that pushes me towards blue a little bit more than red. Let's just go ahead and grab the Bludgeoner and keep ourselves open. This is a very, very big gamble. We are speculating that Feln is open next pack, and we're speculating that we're going to be able to pick up some good blue cards. That's a big gamble, but I'm going to take that risk because I really don't like the idea of playing 4 plus 6-drops in our deck. I don't think it's a good idea. So let's just go ahead and take this Bludgeoner. Yep, Vanguard is good, but I think we're just going to take the Extract at this point. Extract is definitely better than the Vanguard. A removal spell that helps you filter. Exactly what we want in our deck. Not better than the Archive Creator, but if we're going to splash, I think we're going to splash red and green, and not time. Although, there's an argument for splashing time. Well, let's just take the Extract because I think it's the best card for us. The Praxis Stranger helps us splash both red and time, so it's a pretty versatile card, but I think we just want the Ice Bowl here. Rather than trying to splash too many different things. I think the Ice Bowl here is really good for our deck. We have now picked up another unit that's really good with weapons, and we have 2 Infiltrate units that is really good with weapons. We're going to go ahead and grab that. Yep, this Stranger is perfect. It splashes blue and red. And it's a 2-drop. It's exactly what we want. This helps us splash time, but I think that ship has sailed. We're not going to splash the Archive Curator. Zenith Fanatic is not good in our deck. We don't have too many ways to gang life, and we don't gang a lot of life. So I think here we're going to pick up a 1-drop 2/1 Yeti. And the reason for that is because our early game is actually pretty weak sauce right now, and I need a way to not die to opponents really early in the game. So we're going to go ahead and grab this. Over the Crafty Yeti because our 3-drop is already getting pretty heavy, and I don't want another 4-drop. So let's just, and this is actually pretty hard to remove, so it'll guarantee that I can block something, and I just need early game plays right now. Although the TikTok is pretty good with Sacrifice. Actually, this, oh, it's not TikTok, it's Toktik. This Toktik is quite good with Combust, and it's also quite good with any Sacrifice units that I might get later. No, I'll take the Yeti. I think I just want to not die. Ooh, a Fallen Onin is pretty good. Well, actually, if I had known that I would pick up a Fallen Oni here, I would have picked the Toktik last turn. Zenin Stranger... I actually like the Fallen Oni enough that I'm going to take another copy of it. None of these cards will be playing, so... I don't know, maybe Splashable, who knows. Threaten... Definitely not. Duskbind, definitely not. Hall of Lost Kings is not really that great in draft. It's hard to maintain 25 life, 26 life. Sword's good. Wild Cloud Snake is good, but we're not a flyer deck, so it's not good for us. This is a perfectly fine card to splash, though. It's looking more and more like to me that I want to splash red because we have quite a few red fixing already, and this is actually a very powerful card to splash in red. It's definitely better than the Oni here, I think. I mean, we're not going to splash a turn 1 play anyway, so... Oh, but Wisdom of the Elder is quite good. Although, I would say if you draw 2 random cards, it's not guaranteed that it's better than a Torch and a 3-1. So let's just grab that. Can't play Flame Blast. We are interested in fixing, but I'm also really interested in both the Herald and the Cutthroat here. Cutthroat is quite good. 2 mana 2/2 is pretty decent. We could use, actually no, we picked up a lot of 1-drops. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 7 cards that we can play on turn 1 and 2. That actually reduces our need to play turn 2 plays. I'm actually just gonna pick up this banner to make sure that my splashing is. I want to make sure my power, influence power fixing is good. Fixing is really important. No matter how good your deck is, you will lose the game if you don't have the right influence in play. Doesn't matter how many good cards you have, right? So I think this is good enough for me. Oh man. Wow, there's a lot of good cards here. Feeding Time is a premium removal spell, but Oblivion Spike might be really strong in our deck. It's also really hard to beat. Because 5 armor is quite a lot. You can probably kill 1 or 2 units with it, 2 or 3 units with this. But Feeding Time is such a good removal spell. Such a good removal. This is a tough pick. I'm gonna pick the Oblivion Spike. I think the upside is slightly higher because if on an empty board, this can actually do damage to your opponent. And also having this in play makes it really difficult for your opponent to develop their board, because once this is in play, every time your opponent spends power playing a unit that's not too high in power, you can kill multiple units, and so this has a really high upside. Like if your opponent plays one of those decks that has a bunch of 1/5s and 1/4s and 2/5s, you can kill 2 or 3 or 4 of them before this dies, right? So this is got a really high upside compared to Feeding Time. So we're gonna go and grab that. Our curve is looking horrendous. We really want to pick up some early game plays, but this Dark Return is really good for our deck. So we're gonna go ahead and pick up another copy of Dark Return over the Vulture and the Snow Slinger here, because Dark Return really is good in our deck. We have a lot of units that have abilities that you don't mind using over and over again. Like if you can infiltrate multiple times with your Beast Caller, it's hard to lose the game that way. And if you can bring back the Memory Dredger multiple times, it's also really hard to lose the game, where you can keep bringing back Fallen Onis and Dark Wisps and Gorgon and Swiftblades. It's also really difficult to lose. So I think for those reasons, we're going to go ahead and grab another Dark Return here. Wow, this is a good 5-drop. This is a really powerful 5-drop. I was going to pick the Serpent Trainer, but I think this 5-drop is sufficiently powerful enough that we would definitely want this. This card is actually really good for triggering our Infiltrate, but we already have 2 Ice Bowls, so I think we have 2 of those effects already. So let's just go ahead and pick up another Amethyst Acolyte here. I really like this card quite a bit. Yep, we'll just take another Combust. Probably won't play both copies of Combust, but oh man, Smuggler Stash is perfect for this deck. Actually with Smuggler Stash, we may not even need 2 copies of Dark Return, but I think the 4-power 2/2 here, the Recalculator, I don't know how to pronounce this guy, is actually pretty good defensively. But I think we're good for 4 drops. Let's just grab this Yeti Spy, and with the expectation. Oh, this is perfect. Okay, we don't have to play the Yeti Spy because the Stone Scar Magnus is a way better card. Ooh, Trickster's Cloak as another way to trigger our infiltrates. So our deck is looking pretty sweet, actually. For the red, I think the only thing... Let's put the Stone Scar Maul into our deck first, and then look at our power to see if it's even possible to splash. We can remove it later if we have to. I wonder if it's necessary to put the 1-drops in now, because I picked up a couple of... Oh, I like to do this. I like to cut every card from the pile here and just add the cards back in one at a time. I wonder if this is still necessary if I have 2 Fallen Onis. Let's come back to that. We definitely want the Ice Bowl and Dark Returns. Yeah, definitely these cards. These are all good. These are all fantastic. Yeah, well, our black is actually pretty strong. This is... We don't have a lot of ways to trigger this. In fact, I think we just have the one. We just have the extract. But this might not be good enough. This might not be good enough. We're not going to splash a clan here, I don't think. Although, we have just as many red cards as we do have blue cards. In fact, I would say we have more red cards than we have blue cards. So, the blue is looking like the splash at this point. Huh, well that's taking a turn. If that's the case, then I don't play the Gorgon Swiftblade. I just play the three weapons. I mean the three weapons. And I just play straight up. I'll play red. If I play red, then all of a sudden Blink Wolf is very good. I don't really want to play these cards. The Maul is definitely in. All of a sudden our deck has completely changed flavors. Wow, 1, 2, 4, 6 drops might be a little overkill. I'm gonna have to pay 18 lands or more, maybe 19 in this case, because that's a lot of 6 drops. I'm actually thinking I don't need this 6/4 here. That gives me 3 6 drops. That's still a little on the high end, but man, imagine playing a Smuggler Stash on like a Maul, a Memory Dredger, a Beast Collar, and an Oblivion Spike. Jeez, well, our late game is insane. And just Memory Dredger bringing back like a Doc Wisp to sacrifice every turn is already pretty crazy. Yeah, this deck is pretty good. We just have to cut one more card. I'm actually gonna cut this Combust. We don't actually have too many profitable ways to sack units, so I don't want too many of those effects. We only have 15 units, so this deck is really unit light. There might be some argument for adding in a couple more red units here and cut some of the spells, but you can kind of count Dark Return as a unit, so maybe it's more like 17 units. And then Smuggler Stash you can count as 2 units, so that's like 19 units. That's reasonable. All right, let's put some power in play. Yeah, I think this deck turned out really well. It's not a super straightforward deck. It's slightly gimmicky, but it has a lot of very interesting and neat interactions. I really like this deck. Dark Wisp with Memory Dredger is excellent. Fallen Oni with Memory Dredger is actually really good. I mean, if your opponent is only playing 15, 16 units and you get rid of, say, 3 or 4 of their units, that's a big deal. Dark Return works incredibly well with Rebel Illuminator, Magus, Warband Chieftain on a Dark Return, Memory Dredger with Dark Return. All of these cards are great to Dark Return. We have a lot of card advantage with Direwood Prowler and Smuggler Stash. We have some very powerful endgame weapons that we can once again bring back with Smuggler Stash. Trickster's Cloak and 2 Ice Bowls ensures that our Infiltrate triggers will most likely happen in most of our games, unless they get killed right away. But even if it gets killed, we can probably Dark Return it. Or I can't Memory Dredger back. This is a 3-drop. We have a very powerful removal spell on Death Strike, and a pseudo removal and Extract, and then 2 more pretty decent removal spells since the Maul and the Spike, and also the Magus and the Illuminator can serve as removal as well. Most of them are soft removal, but we always have another soft removal in Suffocate, so this deck is great. And the Combust is unconditional removal, so we have great removal, a lot of late game staying power, a decent enough curve, not amazing, but a decent curve, and then some very powerful mid game. Wow, I really like this deck. I think this deck turned out very well. Shadow decks that are Shadow Core are actually really difficult to draft. I have not been very successful with these decks in the past. Not often anyway. I've only drafted it a few times. It's not nearly as straightforward as drafting decks that are, say, time-based, or because Primal and Justice-based decks are pretty straightforward. You just get a whole bunch of flyers and you clock up the ground. You hit them in the air until they die. And that's a very effective strategy. Time also has a very simple and linear game plan in just deploying giant units and then just crushing your opponent through overwhelming brute force. So those are really straightforward decks to draft. But But I think a Felm and Stone Scar are not straightforward because the decks themselves need a lot of micro interactions between the cards in the deck for them to work well. So I think this deck turned out quite well. Let's fix the mana though. So we have 9 Shadow here, and I think 9 Shadow is good. This gives us both Fire and Primal, which is good. So we don't need that many Primal, right? We just need 2. This gives us 4 Primal for 3 Primal cards. I think that's acceptable. And that means this will give us 8 Fire and 10 Fire. So now we have more Fire than we have Shadow. Actually, I think 9 Fire is good enough. So we have now 9 Shadow, 9 Fire, and 5 Primal. I think that split is okay. I don't actually think I need that much Fire. I don't actually think I need 9. Because I don't need double red into a 6-drop. But I definitely need Shadow very early. And I need double Shadow by turn 3 and turn 4. And turn 4. Yeah, I think I want more Shadow here. And cut another Fire. So 6 Fire, 7, 8 Fire. I mean, if I don't play the Blink Wolf early, that's perfectly fine with me. 7 Fire and 5 Primal. I think this is okay. Alright. Wow, I really liked how that deck turned out. I think even if we don't do very well in this draft, I think this deck will be very fun to play. It's gonna have a lot of really cool interactions. I think this is a great deck. So see you in the gameplay videos.